Hi, it's Chris Coffin. Today we're going to talk about premium content that you can use in your market to attract your dream clients. So I get the Denver Business Journal, and there was an email and a classic example of how you can repurpose content in your market to attract your dream clients. So I got this email today, and it had this list, okay? And the Denver Business Journal publishes a book of lists, and there's tons of really valuable information in there. I'm not in the Denver market, but I get the Denver Business Journal, and the Denver Business Journal book of lists document that I'm holding in my hand is the 2019 largest Denver area private schools. So let's think for a second. Who are the people that are interested in private schools? Those would be affluent and luxury buyers and sellers, right? Those would be the affluent segment of your market. They're not sending their kids to a public school, although in your market, the area that you're serving, you need to know, what are the best neighborhoods and communities and school districts and, what are the feeder schools, the elementary schools, the middle schools, and the high schools, and what are all the things that are important about those. But certainly, as it relates to the private schools, there's going to be a ton of affluent clients that are going to ask you, well, tell me what you know about the private schools. So what if you had this document queued up and you had it set so that you could, even from your phone, you could do a link to a Google Doc or a Dropbox file or something. Maybe you had it set up so that it was, automatically send out. One of the things I do is I keep a lot of like little samples in notes on my iPhone, so I can just copy and paste, put it in a text, put it in an email, and send it. And so one way to really quickly respond, but let's take it a step further, right? So think about all the different ways, and I'm going to give you a number of great tips here on how you can repurpose this content, right? Because you should take this document or a document just like it in your market, and you should create a blog post that talks about the 2009 top schools per the Denver Post or per the Dallas Business Journal or the Denver Business Journal in this case, whatever, and list those top 25. Maybe you give the first top 5, and then you write an article about the public schools and the private schools, or maybe this is just about the private schools and you have another post that's about the public schools, or maybe you break it down. You want to try and get as much content about this as possible. So let's just say you're a buyer and you're thinking about moving into the market that you serve, into your community, into your city. What's the very first question that most families are going to ask about the community? It's like, what are the really good communities? What are the good school districts? What are the good private schools where we can send our kids? So it's just an example. If that's a question that your demographic of dream clients is asking, wouldn't it be a good idea for you to have an answer to that question, right? And wouldn't it be a really good idea if you made it easy for them to get the information? So if you were creating a blog post, and we go into detail in the Online Academy on actually how to set this up, but if you create the blog post and then you create an opt-in or a link, right, get the full list. You could take this. You don't want to obviously plagiarize, or you don't want to take their intellectual property. So be sure you're not putting yourself in jeopardy that way. But if you've got the list, then you could create from this list. You might create your own list of private schools that are within your market or within your community, right? So part of the value of your being a top real estate agent is because you have all this stuff at your fingertips and you know the answers to the questions. It's not like you gotta, oh, well, let me see and let me do some research. It's like, no, bam, let me send that to you right now. Or it's already on your website and they're finding you, and you're using this as a reason that you are setting yourself apart. You're differentiating yourself because you're sorting through all the data and you're sorting through all the questions that generally they're going to ask, and you already have the answer. So this is an example of some premium valuable content that you could put on your blog, on your social media, and repurpose this content. You can create a video and say, hey, I want to talk about private schools, in the XYZ area or in the ABC market or around the greater XYZ metropolitan area, and some things to consider as it relates to, let me go through the pros and the cons. This is a really good arts magnet school. It's part of the public school, but it's very hard to get in and your kid has to be focused on this. Or this is a really good school district, but the class sizes are huge and they're a powerhouse football team, and there's a lot of community involvement. If that's a school that you think might be right for your family, here are some of the communities that you feed into that school district or into that high school or into the whatever. So so then these private schools, all right, so close proximity to the schools. If it's a school that a kid is not going to be able to drive their vehicle to because they're not 16 yet, well, how are they going to get to school if it's a private school, right? Probably mom or dad is going to drive them to school. But once they get of age and they can drive, then they're probably going to get a car and they're going to drive. But if it's all the way across town, may not be the best. So there's going to be trade-offs. So if you list those best schools, you might also list the accompanying communities that support those schools or that are in pretty close proximity, right? And so that, and always you want to have a call to action. So you're certainly going to give them the opportunity to opt in, to trade their email address for your valuable piece of content, right? And then you want to make sure you have a call to action in there as well, so that they say, hey, how can I, if you're interested in more, this is an example of a level of detail that I go to as a top real estate agent. If you're interested in more information about the XYZ market or community or the real estate, give me a call here, and a hot link to your email address or your phone number, your contact info. And then in this document that you download, it should have your name all over it as well. Don't just send somebody else's document that doesn't have yours. So you want to create this as a PDF file that they can download, they can view, right? So these are examples of ways that you can demonstrate your credibility, your expertise, your authority, your knowledge about your community. And, you can update this every single year. And you can always be talking. You could maybe you go find the top 10 schools or the top 10 most popular schools, or maybe you list out, the most expensive schools. Maybe you create a separate list, based on the northwest corner or the east, whatever market areas that you serve. And perhaps you go interview the head dean of the school, right? The admissions advisor of the school. So you could do a video interview. You could do another blog post. You could talk to the, what's the popular sports of this school? Well, for they actually don't have a football team, but they're huge in soccer, or they're huge in lacrosse, or they're big. It's a big, they've got this school has a natatorium, which and they have an awesome swim team, or this school has got a great performing arts program, or this school really, really focuses on academics, and they have these summer camps, or they do study abroad programs, or there's all sorts of things that you can write about the different schools based on the demographic that you're trying to appeal to, right? So think about it from your dream client's perspective. And a lot of agents, so I'll just close with this. A lot of agents are like, well, I don't know how to talk to affluent people. I don't know, what they're interested in. Well, guess what? They're absolutely interested in, where their kids are going to school, and private schools and public schools. That's a big one, right? So if you're going to communicate to them about something that's of interest, that's when you're aligning. I call that Venn diagram, right? The circle of their interests and the things that you can be interested in as well. Maybe some of these private schools, there's a nonprofit associated with it. There's a foundation, which normally there is. And maybe there's a school that you want to see if you could volunteer and be a part of that nonprofit. And then you're plugged into that school, right? And you've done some things to align yourself with the dean or the admissions advisor, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you talk to the counselor that deals with all the juniors and seniors, and now they're moving actually down to the sophomore level that talks about how these kids are going to place in college and what the things they're going to do to line up to get into the best colleges, right? So people aren't sending their kids to private schools because they're going to not go to college, right? They want their kids to get into the best university. So maybe you also do an interview with the I can't remember the name of the counselor that helps the kids, do all their applications and works on all the things that are required now. The long list of things are for volunteer hours and academics and leadership and, all the different things that are important. So maybe you could do an interview with that person at the school as well and say, well, tell me about where the kids that go to this school, where do they end up going to college and what's important. What are the focuses of this school as it relates to those kids being able to get into college? Oh, we have, all the high level math and sciences and or we do performing arts and these kids are going to, this, or that we're a big music school, or we're a big school that, a lot of kids leave here and get scholarships or academic or sports scholarships. We create a well-rounded education, and these are the schools we've got really good reputations with. So if your kid goes here, good chance they might go to this school. Example. So there's a lot of different things that you can, use this content for to create, or this type of a subject matter for to create some premium content that's going to attract dream clients that are going to make you stand out and differentiate you amongst your competition. There's a lot of really good information that you can create with this. You could then take this as repurposed and put it into your newsletter, reference it in your market report, reference it, in all your social media, your postings, and you might print it out. If it's a buyer packet that you're meeting with a new buyer, or someone calls you and they said, hey, I saw this listing and, we're curious about that home. What are you going to send them? Well, guess what? You might, if they're a new buyer moving into your community, this is the absolute one of the premium things. I mean, you might ask those questions. Tell me about the ages of your kids. Tell me about your interest. If it's a single couple that doesn't, or a single person or a couple that doesn't have kids, then this might not be important, but you want to ask those questions. So if it'd be important for me to be able to send you some information relative to the public and private schools, the best schools in our community. Oh yeah, we'd be interested in that for sure. So that goes in the packet physically when you print it out. That goes into one of the emails that you send out. That's, just an example of the high level of concierge services that you're going to provide to the affluent buyers in your market. And then you can demonstrate to your sellers that this is one of the ways that you're going to attract the dream client, that you understand how to communicate with the buyers that are potentially interested in their home, that you market yourself in a way that appeals to the demographic, because if they said, hey, well, have you ever sold a $2 million home? Or what are the things that you're doing to market our home, or would you do that would help it to be sold quicker or appeal to the right buyer? Well, if you think about it, and this is what I say to a lot of clients, it's like the people that buy your home are probably going to be a pretty good match of your current demographic. So they may fit into a very similar demographic as to what you are. So, if they have a family or their grandparents or they have kids, or, they all their kids grew up here and it was a great community. Why did, you ask those questions, those second questions, third questions, really, why did you buy this house? Oh, this was, we just knew this was a great school district, or this was a great community, or it was close to the park, or it was close to the country club, or it was close to the walking trail, or it was, easy access to get to, whatever. Well, those are going to be some of the same things that appeal to the demographic of the buyers that would be interested in this home. And most affluent buyers are going to be interested in what? Like we said before, right? The schools. So anyway, sorry for rambling, but I think this is important, and there's a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways that you can utilize this information and use it to promote you as an authority and also add value up front. So you're demonstrating your credibility, your authority, your expertise, your diligence, right? All these things that is so different than just sending a postcard or a magnet or something that says, use me for all your real estate needs, right? And so you might send this report in a postcard form to people, but have a link on there so that they could get a copy of that, right? And that might be the way that you're marketing yourself to a specific community. Or you might send that out and say, that this private school or these public schools, what they rated recently and what that does to the value of the homes in that area, right? Especially public schools. If the school is really good, that's going to help increase the demand and the value for the homes that are in that area. If the schools are really bad, right, then that may decrease. So good or bad, it's still valuable information that people are curious about. So write the article, write the blog post, create the content. Either way, right? And you may word it in such a way, when we lived in Texas, there was and I think it's still the one child, No Child Left Behind program that rated the schools, and every year they would get ratings based on the test scores. And in the community, we'd actually get the breakdown of the scores and the performance per the demographics, a breakdown of the school. So it's very interesting statistics. Well, that's another example that you might have that report on file or online that you could quickly and easily. So it's an example of how you can leverage content both online and offline. If you're meeting with a client, you're going to give this to them. It might be in the packet of information that you give to them. It might be a report that's on your desk. It might be an example, and you might have a place for people to log into your website and they get access to all these resources as an example. So there's a lot of different ways to do this, and I'm throwing out a lot of different ideas for you just to demonstrate the power of how you can leverage this content. So anyway, I hope this has been informative. As always, appreciate if you like it and share it, and subscribe, and let me know if there's questions that you have, areas that we can help you. And I hope your real estate business is awesome in 2019. Have a great day.